my other hearing aids, so I have these spare ones and they look like I'm 90 years old with these hearing aids.
Well, if it's any consolation,
ones
I
that-
feel like I'm 90 years old. So.
But I have the ones that go right, like you didn't see them, they're very discreet. So I got them several years ago and they big and clunky and whatnot, they work, but so they're
Before these, you guys would vote.
Combination.
they're not,
We could just,
they're not here for cost.
No.
you really want to keep me on my toes.
That much time, do we?
And all the time that you take.
Recording.
This publicized.
It is. We are zooming this right now. So far, Scott's joined.
So the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Can you click on Scott and make him a co-host, please?
Yeah.
Up. One. Down one.
There is one down. There you go. Yay. And also give the phone do screen sharing here, right?
Seniors moment.
I can do that.
Oh my God, look at the size of the print.
Those only says one at a time.
But what do you have on your phone? Is your phone like maximized?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I've seen some where it's like each text message is like that big.
Well.
Is that yours? Yeah, that's pretty big.
That's nice.
But you clicked on it though, hey? Like, did you have? to
Yeah, you
click
have
on
to click on it, but
Oh,
if I
yeah.
click on one and I make it big like that,
Yeah.
then the next one I go to, say,
I know, because when you find yourself like sitting there and all of a sudden you start like moving the phone at different, you're like,
yeah. When Terry's driving, you need the big print.
So Brian and Deb, I gave you guys printed copies of the agenda today.
Mhm.
If you'd like to have electronic sign in and have them electronically, I can give you some iCompass details so you can actually log in and have them there if you'd like, because sometimes there may be in-camera matters.
Mm.
So would that be your preference?
Yes.
Okay, I will take care of that by the end of the week.
Thank you.
How would you, because how do you full screen?
I need to close this one.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's after one. Hey, is everybody, you guys ready? All right, because you guys have not appointed a chair, I, as a corporate officer, will also call the meeting to order. I've got a little blurb to say. Terry would like to speak, and then Evan will speak. And then we'll have a motion for you guys to appoint a chair from amongst yourselves. So being 1 o'clock, I call the Planning and Development Committee meeting to order. And so in front of you, I have included just a quick refresher, if you will, on perhaps some governance. I'm not sure, Brian and Deb, when the last time you guys have been a part of a committee of this structure. I think you have before, but just if there's if the comfort, if you want to like make a motion, how that would happen. So I'm just going to kind of read through what I've handed out. This committee, being a committee of council, does follow the council procedure bylaw. So I've given you a copy of that for some light reading if you'd like. I don't know who else loves to read a bylaw like me. But basically the point of this committee is that this is an advisory committee to council. This council does not have any authority delegated to it. You're to review the existing policies and make recommendations. And perhaps if you have recommendations to the existing policy, you would make those to council as well. But all decisions are still made at the council level and not at the committee level. And so the point of this meeting in terms of informed decision-making as a group is, your goal is to achieve quality decision-making together. And so each committee member that's here brings valuable knowledge, ideas, experience to the discussion. And, achieving a consensus requires consideration of all viewpoints. So I just want to remind you all to be expected to come prepared, be engaged, and be considerate of one another. And again, as I said, this committee makes recommendations only on policy, and it's to support the decision-making of council. So to make decisions together, if you would like to make a recommendation, you would wait to be recognized by whoever the chair is. You would say, I move that, and what your recommendation is. If another person in the room feels, or another member feels that they would like to support, or that motion is worthy of debate, they would say, I second that motion. You do not have to agree with the motion to second it. It's just that you think it's worthy of debate. Then the chair will facilitate discussion, one speaker at a time. Wait again to be recognized by the chair. When the chair feels that the discussion has come to a close, they will call the motion to a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. If you are in the room and you do not raise your hand, but you are considered to a vote in the affirmative. So you must indicate for sure if you are opposed, okay? And then once the motion is carried, that is now a decision of the committee, whether or not you personally voted for it or not. It is a committee decision, okay? So, it's not ideal to go out afterwards and be like, well, I didn't really support that. No, you as a committee, you valued each other's opinions, you came to consensus. Are there any questions on procedure that you have? Nope, we're just gonna run trial by fire. I like it. So I'll turn it over to Terry. Terry is the mayor. This is a standing committee. He had the authority to establish this. And so he established a standing committee and he would like to just speak on the purpose of the committee.
Thanks, Jen. And Jen's helped me navigate through something that I wasn't too familiar with, but when it comes to appointing members to the committee. So I want to thank Gord and Jeff for standing up as councillors, and of course, Deb and Brian. One of the suggestions that came through by Deb was that would be somewhat recommended that if we form this committee, that we would bring on members of the community, and that was taken and well versed, and we have two excellent members of the community. I could honestly say that, although I'm not so sure that I'm going to be able to put it with Deb after the meetings. Anyway, thanks, Scott. One of the reasons that we wanted to put this committee together, it's not to be in opposition to the planning committee or the development services side, it's to assist. And so, and try to get through to the preliminary discussions with people that are interested in either doing something that are already in the community or people that are coming from outside the community, and how this planning committee can also work with our economic development coordinator in Carly as well. So the appointment was made at the last council meeting, even though Brian hadn't been approached at that particular time, but we appointed him as well, and he's been willing to stand up. So from that, I want to thank you for taking part in this in every given way, and I think it's going to be a big asset. And we did have a committee in the past, but now you know your roles. It is an advisory committee, and the final decisions will be made by council. And I think that this will be a big asset when it comes to all the things that are happening in Sicamous. And trust me, what's taking place now, what's taking place in the past, and what's taking place in the future, Sicamous is on a roll, and we've got a lot of work to do. So with that, I'll give it back to you, Jen, and you can elect a chair.
Sure. Actually, I just wanted to turn it over if the town manager wanted to speak at this time.
So thank you, Jen. I could probably speak on this topic for hours. I won't. I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes. What has been established here is common. A lot of municipalities have a committee, an advisory committee, whether you call it a municipal planning commission, municipal planning committee, development committee. I've seen all kinds of different forms over the years. The whole intent is to assist with the development approval process, to show interest in potential development, to, show enthusiasm to potential investment and development, to bring new investors to the community, to approach things with the glass half full, not the glass half empty, and to basically push projects that are consistent with the OCP, the zoning bylaw, and all our other documents. We have a lot of master plans, whether it's parks and trails, whether it's transportation, et cetera, et cetera. The whole intent is to show the other side of the table, the applicant, that we're open for business. And it sounds very simple and easy, but it's not. because with that responsibility comes regulation. And we're in government, and our job is to protect the neighbors, the surrounding area of any proposed development. We had calls this morning on tonight's agenda about St. Louis houseboats. You know, it's not an easy business being in the approval business when you have so many competing interests, and it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to upset 50% of the other side. I welcome this because I have sat on the other side of the private sector. I've done a lot of consulting. I have seen local governments absolutely bastardize the process with their red tape. I've seen horror stories. I've also seen very good, very efficient local governments where they're fair, there's flexibility, there's understanding. I think it starts with education on behalf of the members of this committee and council, and that we have to educate the citizens on what we're all about, what's our philosophy, which we know in St. Louis is pro-business. We want to get stuff done. We have not changed that mandate since 2014 when this current council was elected. But also understanding the other side, understanding the development side. For me, it's about progress and process. Are we 50-50? Are we 80-20? Are we 20-80? What is Sycamoose when it comes to progress? And what is Sycamoose when it comes to process? There are some people in this community, 100% progress, not interested in process. And then there's the opposite. It's all about process. It's all about dotting the I's, crossing the T's, layer upon layer of bureaucracy and excuses, just to basically serve their own agenda, their own purpose. And it doesn't work, especially in this community. And so I'm hopeful that this committee can find that balance. And what are we? And I do believe once we agree what that balance is, I personally think it's about 75-25, 70-30, my personal opinion. I'm all for process, but not at the expense of progress. So what is that balance? And once we agree on that balance, I believe staff in this committee and council can move projects forward with an understanding that we share a united front. Because this can't continue, folks. These phone calls, and I speak on behalf of Councillor Malmus, Councillor Bushel, the mayor, and myself, it has to stop. This is not sustainable. Every time we issue a permit or enter in discussion with an applicant, it blows up. Okay, it blows up. I'm talking about the bad files. There's a lot of good files that go through, no problem. We can't continue this. So we need to be united, because at the end of the day, the applicant deals with the district of Sycamoose. They deal with staff, this committee, and council. So I'm encouraged that this could be the first step to understanding that balance between progress and process. Because really, folks, that it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. If you read the Local Government Act, if you read the Community Charter, and you read our zoning bylaw and OCP, we have enough rules and regulations to sink the Titanic. But if you're also understanding what a small town is and economic development and getting stuff done, and understanding that we need to be flexible, then you know what, we can do that also. You have to understand both sides. I always talk about Mark Holland, who I consider one of my mentors. Mark gets it. He's a planner, he's a developer, he gets it. He teaches a course on it. It's under the Urban Development Institute. It's called the Master Development class. These are seasoned pros who work together on both sides of the development fence. He's willing to train us and work with us, as he already has. He's a consultant on contract. He is the big author of our new zoning bylaw. Mark Holland gets it. He's one of the few planners that do get it. And so I'm hoping again, and I'm just going to wrap it up, that this committee can achieve that balance. We need to find a balance. Both sides are guilty of going too far one way and too far the other way. When I say both sides, pro-development side and the pro-regulatory side. One final comment, we are in the business of regulation. That's what government is. We're not in the business of representing the banks or developers. We're supposed to represent the taxpayer, right? The community, protect their interests. So again, the challenge before this committee is to find that balance. So thank you with that. Looking forward to the proceedings.
Okie dokie. So the committee must elect a chair from amongst itself. So someone would move, someone would second, and then you guys could vote on that. Or if you would like to have a hearty debate, you may.
Why don't we talk about it
Sure.
and see who's interested in being the chair?
Are any of you as non-counselors interested in chairing?
I'm not interested in chairing, but on another committee that I sat on that Deb was on, she was excellent chair of that committee. So, but if somebody else would like to do it, then, you know,
No,
don't want to step on any toes.
Someone could make a motion if they'd like, or if you would like to nominate Deb.
no, I'd rather nominate Jeff like he was doing this before. I think that we're creating a new, like, Evan's talking about process and such. And I think Brian and I are both very interested in helping facilitate what you guys are trying to do here. But I think I just want to help facilitate and.
Yeah,
So-
I feel the same way. I just want to be, I would make a motion that Jeff be the chair.
Is there a seconder? Okay, Councillor Buckley.
Seconded, if Jeff doesn't want to do it, I'll do it, but I nominate Jeff myself, but if he doesn't want to do it, I would do it too.
All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded that Jeff Malmus be appointed as the chair of the Planning and Development Committee. Is there any debate on that? All right, so then I will call that motion, call the question. All those in favor? Are you in favor?
Well, I guess so.
All those opposed?
Jeff,
All right, that's carried. Councillor Malmus is the chair of the Planning and Development Committee. Over to you.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I'm glad this committee's been reestablished, and I'm actually really glad that there's a couple members of the public at large on this committee. Deb and Brian were both on the OCP, so they were a part of what the vision was initially set up to be. There was some great debate, some great walkarounds, some great renderings done. We got an OCP. Because of whatever we're lacking in the follow-up, which was the zoning bylaws. And we've been working on them. We have a draft copy. I've read them several times. I haven't had a chance to read this because my phone's been ringing too much with why we should be here. So this is a small community, and they rely on everybody, and they call who they know, either myself or Gord or Colleen, even Brian, Deb. They all get calls and chats. Well, what about this? What's happening in your community? And there's people that come here that want to spend money, and they're asking. And part of our issue is that we have a lot of new staff. The planning department has, I think Melinda was here for 3 years. Is that correct, Devin?
5 years.
5. And in Melinda's defense, she was part of the planning or the OCP. I didn't think that a planner should be part of the OCP because it's a visionary document, not a blinding document. Planners tend to have blinders is the general rule of thumb. I'm hoping that our planning department actually takes the blinders off. I talked with Evan. I'd strongly suggest that the district Sycamoose offer to pay for the course that Mark Holland offers. It's a serious eye opener. It gives you both sides of the fence, makes you aware of what a developer's looking at. And I've spent a lot of time personally working with developers. Trust me, developers will take everything they can get and leave you nothing in return if they get the opportunity. So yes, as Evan said, it is a balancing act, but we can't lump them all in the same jar. And mostly I'd like them to come to the planning committee and get a feeling of comfort and them to ask questions without and get all the information that they need when they go out the door, so that when they come back with their permit, everything that they have to have is in that package. When they drop off the permit and they're $165, it doesn't take 4 weeks to get back to them and say, well, you didn't have this or you didn't have that. That's the part we have to get past, because 2007, everybody was boom and bust, and early 2008, everybody was flying all hands on the deck to building this and doing that. And October 2008, everything was bust. And we're in a financial crisis, and people are changing their evaluation of their life, their lifestyle. I mean, people are emptying their wallets and buying $200,000 boats and building their last home they're going to live in, and they're looking at sycamores to do it in. And we need to help them get there so that they come here and don't wander off someplace else. And this council has had that vision since 2014, when they talked about closing the schools. We kept them open. We've got kids, we've got daycare. We're poised now to be ready for it. And I'm just saying that the calls that Gord gets, the calls that I get, the talking to from builders and the rest of it, it's not helping us at all. The district has to be more aware of our history. I realize that we have some new staff, and Gord's been here probably longer than anybody. And I've been here since '97. This town's got a lot of history. There's a lot of files, and this office and the CSRD, because it used to be a water board, not everything was done exactly by rules and regulations. And so just about every file that anybody brings to you needs to get a serious review, and you need to do a history review before you have a conversation with clients. And that's why I'm hoping this planning committee with Gord and myself and the public at large here, that we actually can sit down, somebody comes in, make sure we did our homework before we give them any response of what they have to do or whatever, because there's a lot of files that have a lot of paperwork that honestly is hard to find. And I'm not 100% certain, but Mr. Parliament, I've been told 3 or 4 times that government office, so the district of Sycamores, doesn't matter as long as we've been incorporated, we are supposed to have a copy of every development file that's ever been submitted. Is that not correct?
Correct. We should have a copy.
And so, some of these developments have changed hands a number of times. Bankruptcy, new partner, whatever, or some person that took it over thought he wanted to be a developer, not really in the development game. But there should be a file in this office that has that historical data in it someplace. I looked for a couple ones, and I'm sorry, I go to my go-to girl is Wendy Law. She's been here the longest. She can find a file under it must be under the cabinet, because nobody else found it, but she found it. So a lot of the files do exist, but there are some that are missing, is my understanding, from our move, from the flood that happened in the old office that was the forestry building. And so I'd just like to see Melinda was green. It took her 2 to 3 years to get up to speed, but just before she left, in the last 2 years she was here, she was doing a great job. She was pushing a lot of paper through and following the rules and not bending them, and she understood what council was looking for. And we have new staff, and I don't think we have the luxury of waiting 2 to 3 years to get up to speed on what the council wants. It needs to happen sooner than later. And so we're hoping with this committee that we can actually assist in making sure that the client leaves here knowing everything that they're going to need to do, that they don't get an email from the district office 3 or 4 weeks into the process saying, oh, we're missing this, and then it's got to start over again. So that's all this committee should be about, is just assisting people getting what they need as far as a permit, as far as development permits. And it can be a great thing for this community to move things forward. So that's the chair. Thank you very much. Gord.
Yeah, well, first off, I'd like to thank Terry for appointing me to the board, and thanks staff for coming in and listening to us, and of course our committee members from the community. So I just, I don't have to go through the whole thing, and like, Jeff got a lot of good points there. I've kind of been on both sides of the fence. I've been a developer before, doing 66 units on Riverside Avenue, Mare Landing, and then been in the planning committee before. And I just see, it's good that we brought this committee together, because I think we need to work together with staff, because we have a lot of history here and in the community. And I think you guys have done, since we're all have new, the planning department's all new. Melinda did a fabulous job. She was doing a lot of work, and amazing how much work she got done, just with herself. And so I like this. I like seeing what's happening right now. You guys are starting to push through lots of permits. They're coming in really quick. You have a handful of, maybe more of a handful of stagnant files that have been, just got lost in between Melinda and you guys getting started. So it's good that we're getting through those. We're not all through them all, but almost through them. And I really appreciate all the hard work you guys have been doing to try to get those, pushed through. So I wanted to thank you guys, and we'll get through them, and don't be afraid to just pick up the phone and call if you want any history on any property, and I'd be happy to help. So thanks very much.
Mr. Anderson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for appointing me to this. I think it's important that that this sort of thing happens, because I see the other side of it. I've never been part of municipal government. I've been in the private sector, and I see the people that come to town, and a lot of times they talk to me, and I'm a big sick moose guy. I pride myself in being a positive person, live my life that way. And so when people come to town and they say, oh yeah, what's it like? And what's it going to be like dealing with these guys in here? Because people are afraid of red tape. They're worried that you're going to take something away from them. So, and I usually say, look, this is it's come out of my mouth several times. This is the best council and town to bring something forward. It's gonna happen. And the one comment I would say is, it really feels like an us and them situation with the council versus the staff. And that may be a perception. It may not be right. But it feels like it's really two sides of the district. Now, I'm just looking from the outside, and I just, if I would just add a comment to it, it'd be nice. It would be nicer to feel, even if it's just a perception, is to feel that it was more of a cohesive team, and that when a developer, now there's, like you say, there's good developers and there's bad developers, but when somebody comes to town and they have an idea, they have a piece of property they're looking at, that the message is the same, and it's a real positive message. And it just seems like sometimes it doesn't seem like that. So any way that I can help with my perspective, I promise I'll stay in my lane. I'm not a government guy. I will talk about what I know, and stay away from some of the other parts of it that I don't know enough about them. So, but I'm excited about the opportunity and I'll try my best. Be nice to know a little bit ahead of time, get some prior notice about, what we'll be talking about. I don't know if that's possible, but it's always good to be able to have a little bit of knowledge before you come in here and get put on the hot seat, So that's it. Thank you very much.
Deb?
Yeah, so just, I guess, most of you know me pretty well, except for the newer staff. So I was chair of the official community plan advisory committee. It was an interesting committee. After it dissolved, I did work very closely with Melinda to make sure that it went forward to adoption. It was very important to me. I do the Communities in Bloom because to me, it's a great, again, facilitating support organization for doing a lot of the things that I thought were the high priorities in the official community plan vision, mostly related to downtown revitalization and beautification. And so it dovetailed well with that. I guess the other thing that some of you may not know, I'm not doing, I was very active in terms of my the properties I own in town in terms of redeveloping them, or I guess upgrading them because I kept them the way they were. But I'm also a strong advocate for real affordable housing and making a difference in that area. So, and I don't think there's a bigger cheerleader for this town than me. Like Larry, Deb, can you talk to people that want to buy in town because he wanted a cheerleader? That's been my thing. So I think this is a great idea on Terry's front. I appreciate him listening to me on that angle. And I think this has the opportunity to do some really good things to help facilitate staff and council. So.
Scott?
Yeah, I have a whole slide on who we are, but we'll get to that. But yeah, just a couple of things, just responding to, I guess, Councillor Malmas, you said help them get there, and Brian, you said afraid of the red tape, and yeah, like that's when someone asks me what do you like a planner, I tell someone I'm a planner. What does a planner do? And I was like, well, somebody wants to rezone, I help them do that. Somebody wants to subdivide, I help them do that. That's my job, is to help people get there. So definitely on board with that. And then, yeah, I wouldn't want anybody being afraid to come in and give us their idea. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we deal with is when people are afraid to tell us their plan, right? They tell us a little bit of their plan and we try and help them get there. And then their plan just shifts a little bit. And I've had this conversation a million times. Once it was with somebody down near Swansea Point, and they had this big piece of property and they told me what they want to do. And I was kind of asking questions and I was like, well, if this was my property, this is what I would do with it. And he's like, that's exactly what I want to do. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that? He's like, well, I thought you'd say no. I'm like, no, that's not my job, isn't to say no. My job is to help you get there. So yeah, definitely. I think this committee, I see it serving two functions. One is giving advice to people who want to develop. So people come in, they can get some advice from this committee. And then the other part is this committee can then report back to council at large and say, hey, council, this is what's happening. This is where development services staff are with applications. This is where development services staff are with the bigger projects. And then it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off Steffi and Sarah and I from feeling that pressure where at a council meeting, someone says, what's going on with this one? We heard it's gone sideways. Well, members of this committee will know it. Maybe it has gone sideways, maybe it hasn't, but they'll be able to give the straight answer at the council meeting. And that way we don't always have to be on the defensive, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think it's going to add to our process. I don't think it's going to take away, and I don't think it's going to slow down any applications. If anything, it's going to make them more clear from the beginning. So I think we're excited to be part of the committee.
Sarah?
Just glad to be here. Look forward to working with you guys. And I mean, I know I have my own ideas for this kind of a thing, but we'll see how it goes. In terms of, it would be nice to get applicants before you guys long ahead of it going to council. that would be ideal, I think, so that we're not in this.
I'm sorry, it's very, very hard to hear you.
Sorry, Jeff. I think I'm hard to hear at the best of times. But yeah, I was just saying, I know like I have some hopes for the community too, in terms of getting applicants before you guys well ahead of going to council so that things can be hashed out in terms of addressing some concerns and helping applicants to come up with how they want to address the concern. Like it's not always up to staff to tell them what to do, right? It's their project. So you want it to be their way, but at the same time, understanding, you know, how to meet basic needs in terms of authorizing approvals, if that makes sense. Right?
Steffi?
I promised Steffi she wouldn't have to say anything.
I'm excited as well. I just graduated from planning school, and being in planning school, I was told that like they would teach you from like profession, like Mark Holland, Pam Shaw, everyone who's in the profession come and teach us. And they're like, no matter like how good you want to see or what good intention you have, at the end of the day, you will be the bad guy. And being in the profession now, just seeing both the sides, it's very interesting. The process is different, but it's good to kind of see what I learned and to apply them in practical life. That has been interesting. So, yeah.
Oh.
Did you want to say something?
You know, I'm just really pleased to see this committee established, and I'll look forward to supporting it procedurally as my nerdy position. So you actually probably won't even see me very often, to be honest. This will be between you and development services. So.
And so you are not going to be our official note taker?
I will not.
Okay, I wonder who that's going to be, because if it's me, it's going to be lousy notes.
It's Steffi. Steffi will be the note taker for these meetings. And of course, if there's ever any concerns about procedures that you'd like to talk about, you can come find me.
Okay, but these are as council recorded?
Yes.
So there is
an official record.
there is a piece of paper that we can get our finger pointed in our face saying that you said that.
Yes.
That's the one thing that I'm sorry to say, I hear this more times than not, that the proponent or the applicant, whatever the correct term is, said they went into the district office and they had a meeting and they were told this, and this. And 3 to 5 months later, that has not happened. And I've even got names of who they met with. And I'm hoping that through this planning committee, that stuff comes to the planning committee. And I mean, in a general initial conversation, I think the discussion should be with this committee, and more so with, I'd actually like to see, I know he's on contract, but a bylaw, the building inspector as well wouldn't be a bad person to be involved in this process. But if we tell people things, we've pretty much got to follow through on it. That's why in the meetings that I have with people, I just go, I can't comment on it. I don't like the idea. Brian's come to me with an idea. I said, well, I didn't like that. I didn't think that was the right place, but I can't make the decision. It's got to go to council. And other developers do the same thing. But when they say that they had a meeting and they were told this, and this, or maybe they weren't even told and they assumed it. That's why I think one of the things that's critical for this planning committee is to create a 1 or 2 pager, more or less, for somebody who's going to try and do their own little development or do their own variance for their property or whatever, that basically says if you want to change your setback on your property, this is what the process is. This is what you'll have to do. I think that would take a lot of the ambiguity out of us trying to explain it or them coming in the office. And I think that, I hate to say it, I don't even like going on our website because I find it's cumbersome. It's hard to find things. I think for planning, it should be, or development or that should be at the front of the list and easy to find so that people can actually get to it. And it needs to be, a lot of the stuff in the Government Act has got a lot of lingo and circles in it, and try and make it cleaned up that it's easy to read, that a dumbass like myself can get it the first time. I don't have to read it and then go, well, this word makes it say this, or this word makes it say that. Because as a long time ago, I was a welding inspector, level 3, which made me a little stronger than even engineers. But it doesn't matter. The building inspector is the same type. It's subject to the person's viewpoint. And one building inspector is going to read that like this, and the other building inspector is going to read it like this. And I think some of our bylaws that we have that exist were that way. That's why it was really important that our zoning bylaws got pushed through and cleaned up so that that ambiguity and the unclarity in it was moved forward. So I know that's not a part of this committee, but if we can get a little heads up, especially Gordon, I would always get it. But if the public at large could get a little heads up on what was coming, and we have even a draft of I know I got that the other day. I don't think you don't have the draft of the bylaws, and Deb, you don't have it, do you?
No,
No.
no, I went through.
I think it's imperative for us to have it so that if we see something come in here, we can say, okay, this is what our current is. This is the direction we're trying to get to. I'm not sure even about the legality of using a non-adopted zoning bylaw. So that's a question for staff.
It's important to reference the OCP in those kind of circumstances, right?
Hear you, sorry.
Sorry. That's where the OCP comes in. Like that's our legal document that we reference for any potential development that's different from current zoning, right?
Okay.
Basically, like in general, like our downtown is wide open in terms of what can happen in the downtown. And there's a lot more flexibility along Riverside Drive along the water. Though there's a certain point where it shifts to totally residential.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I know from talking with Mark that there were some OCP updates to be done as well.
Yeah.
Through the consultation process with the zoning bylaw.
Mr. Parliament, do you have something you'd like to add?
Sure. Let's talk about a specific file and the challenge of this committee. I'm not going to mention names, but we all know the area. Because this is going to be hard work, you guys. You're going to now see what it's like to process an application when you have constraints within our own regulations and also constraints with the applicant. So let's talk Zapponi. If you listen to the owners of Zapponi, staff have bungled the case, staff are not assisting whatsoever, staff are causing more grief. When you see this application come before this committee, you're going to see a whole different story. I'm not going to get into the details now. You're going to see that it's a slippery slope every time staff try to assist instead of just saying no up front. It's hard to say no. It's hard for staff to say no. It's hard for this committee to say no to an applicant. But when you say yes, let's work it out, sometimes it backfires because you enter into the abyss. And the abyss is, well, you issued me a building permit for the house, but there's no road or no water. Yeah, that's because it's a private property. Zapponi ends where Zapponi ends. Your driveway and your services within Zapponi has got nothing to do with the DOS. And so how do you fix that? It would have been simple for the DOS to simply say, no building permit, subdivide. That's what everyone else does. Instead, we say, okay, you don't want to subdivide, that's fine. Let's do this other agreement. And they come back and say, no, I don't want to do that either. And this committee is going to be delving into that stuff. It's not easy. My point is this, sometimes when staff try to say yes, it even gets messier and more icky instead of just saying no. And there's pressure on staff to say yes because they're not stupid. Staff are not stupid. They know the political landscape of Sycamores. They know what council wants. They want to assist, like Scott said. But then sometimes you got to just say no. In the case of Zapponi, We should have said no, but instead, let's work with the applicant. Let's get a building permit going. And now we're in this pickle where we don't have an agreement and they refuse to sign the agreement on private land. Got nothing to do with the taxpayer. Nothing to do with the taxpayer. So do you let the taxpayers pick up the cost for a private piece of property? If council wants to do that, that's not the way we were trained. So that's one example. There's others, but this committee is going to delve into that. And what I'm hoping this committee can do is come to a resolution that's fair for everybody, because it's not easy. My final point is, when staff were attacked by email, by phone call, I had no choice but to defend them. That's my job. So if they're going to get nasty and they're going to start making comments, and I dealt with a couple last week, I have to interfere. If I don't, who will? If an applicant is fair, we're all good. But if they get nasty and personal, then I have to defend staff. And I'll always defend staff for that. It is unacceptable for an applicant to be nasty. And I've got lots of examples of that. So, I'm hoping again that this committee can show the applicants there's a fairer process, a more open process, more transparent. We don't have to be icky and nasty anymore. But I can't allow staff to receive emails and phone calls and there's nastiness behind those calls. You see all over social media. Let's face it, folks, people aren't in love with the government right now. Federal, provincial, local. There's a lot of anger out there. It's directed at the local level because we're the easy target. You can't take on Victoria, you can't take on Ottawa, but it's easy to take on a local government. So I'm hoping again, this committee can find that balance where, more importantly, the applicant feels confident that they can come in and have a frank discussion, how to fix zoning. And if we can, great. And I think we can, collective minds and get the applicant to the table. As long as the calls stop. That's one thing that Councillor Malmus and I have agreed on. We got to end these phone calls. It's not fair to you, Councillor Malmus, Councillor Bushel, Mayor Rice. It's not fair that you guys take phone calls in the heat of the moment because they're upset about what staff said or what they were told. It's not fair to you guys because you don't know the full story. And you're standing there taking that phone call and you just want to get progress and move sick and move forward. And I get that. Staff have to understand that elected officials look at things at a different lens. They do not look at it the way we look at it. Staff look at things differently. Elected officials look at things entirely differently. We have to understand that and respect that. Anyways, lots more. I'm looking forward to wrapping up some of these files that are causing a lot of consternation right now. And right now, I think roughly for me, there's about 3 or 4 complicated ones.
Right, so moving along here. So I guess we got to get to the number 3, approval of the
That
agenda.
is correct, yes.
A little bit ahead of the game.
That was just the hello, howdy doody. Now. Hey, so approval of the agenda. Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for April 28th be approved as circulated. Oh, I gotta ask that. Does the public at large vote as well? They do.
They do, yes.
Yeah.
So just to clarify on that, any member of council may also attend, but it's only these 4 that have voting rights. So all 4 of you have voting rights.
Okay, so Gord first, Brian second, all in favor? Approved, thank you. Adoption of the minutes, non-first meeting, so. New business, terms of reference, recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee adopt the terms of reference as presented on the 28th of April, 2021. Planning and Development Committee terms of reference. I need a mover. Brian, seconded by Deb. All in favor? Development Services roles and update for information. I am assuming that was your point that you were making earlier, Scott.
Correct, yeah.
Go ahead.
Not working for me on my slideshow. Try again. we go. So, yeah, the roles and updates. So just, yeah, you've met myself, Sarah and Stuffy, and we also include Phaedra. She's the kind of the first face that people are going to see when they come in to get an application. So she's going to be pretty important. And then, yeah, so we've gone to a consultant as our building official, and that's Dale Reed. I think Dale, everybody should be familiar with Dale as well. But this is our team. Yeah, pretty excited. Myself, I graduated probably like this day 20 years ago. So I've got like been working for 20 years. Can't believe it. So 20 years of planning experience though. A lot of it, 8 years at the CSRD, and then I was in Elkford, which is a town that's very similar to Sycamore in size, 2,500 people. And then Sarah's got a lot of experience, really impressed with her skills and her knowledge, and I think she's gonna be pretty awesome to work with. And then Steffi has a set of skills that we're really lucky to have, architecture background, master's in planning, and then some artists and design skills that we're lucky to have here in Sycamore. So I think it's gonna be a pretty good team to work with. Maybe just talk a little bit about how we put the agendas together. I would think it would be best if council or if the committee has anything they want brought to the committee, they can send it to myself or the chair, and then the chair and I can work out what will be on the agendas. For the next agenda, this one's pretty light, but for the next one, I already have a couple ideas that we can work on. And then we'll try and get like Brian, you said you want to see things before, so we'll try and get the agendas out
If possible, yeah.
well ahead of time. And
I'm just a dumb carpenter. I need some foresight.
yeah, we can work with that. So the chair and I will work on the agendas, and we'll get them out early, and then everybody be on the same page. I thought today we just talk about the applications that we have that are open right now. So these are all our applications that we're working on. The red ones are the ones that are complete. The ones in black are the ones that we're working on. They're listed by the time we receive them. So you can imagine the ones close to the top that are black in color are probably some of the more difficult ones, and then that they've been hanging around a while. But yeah, we're gonna get through them. Next time, our next meeting, then I won't include the red ones. We'll just have the ones that are open and active. If anybody has a particular one they're interested in talking about right now, we can do that. We are getting close to 2:30 when the meeting's gonna probably lead into a council meeting. So if anybody wants to talk about
I can't read it.
some of these current ones, then we can talk about them right now briefly, and we can give an update.
I can't read them from there.
Okay, well, once we get rid of the red ones, we'll have more room to put them up there. Yeah.
Would it be proper to talk about the one at SL 31 at 711 Park Street?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a good idea to have this list, so staff are sort of asking the 4 members on the calls that you've received, let's attack these files and see if we can get some clarity and a resolution to some of these files. Because we know that there's some tortures, so that's what we're asking you. So 711 Parksville's one, are there others?
Well, 109 Finlayson, which I asked you about this.
109 Finlayson?
Yeah, Gord had some different, I seen an email, and so
Sure.
I'd rather Gord lead that.
I can speak to it if you want the latest update on it.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
It's May long weekend. So 109 Finlayson, so that's the property the district owns. 3 years ago, we went to a posting, and 3 years ago, 2 years ago? At least three. District owned 1214 Riverside and 109 Finlayson. 1214 used to be the old site for our village office, and 109 Finlayson is right beside Red's. At the time, we decided to entertain what they called the 49er Diner, which was a 1949 Greyhound bus to be refurbished and turned into a restaurant. The proprietor would be Natalie and her husband Stu. They've now since changed that goal because they've had issues with the bus. They still own the bus. They still plan to get the bus up and running someday. But for 2021, they want to be open May long weekend, and they want to have a real funky eatery, a mobile eatery. Leased on 109 Finlayson. The challenge is that the lease last year that was signed with the proponent and the DOS was very clear. In the lease, it says for $350, for $350 a month, as is. There's your lot. Go for it. Do what you want to do, submit a development permit, even though Natalie confused the lease with the development permit. She thought that the lease did include tacit approval for a DP. We resolved that. We did some work on that, Scott and the team. So for $350 a month, which is a fantastic deal to lease land, it was as is. And in the lease is very clear, all improvements are to be borne by the tenant. When she discovered, Natalie, that there were costs associated to get the lot to permit stage, i.e. services, water, sewer, fencing, trees, surface materials, all of a sudden the cost started to escalate and there was a request for the DOS to assist. Well, that's not what the lease says. So again, being glass half full, we took the approach, okay, Natalie, let's work with you. So we came to an agreement that we're going to Y a connection on the existing washroom, and the DOS and the public works staff are going to do that at no charge, rather than putting in a separate line from the opposite side, because the sewer is on the north end of Finlayson. We'd have to cut into the road. We're talking $10,000 just to hook up a separate sewer connection, which technically the bylaw says you must do. But instead, we're just wiring off the existing that exists right now at the washroom. So we solved that. Then the tree issue came up. The trees on the east end are right down the middle of the property line between Wolf and 109 Finlayson. Okay, the owner of the what do you call it? Animal.
Pet stuff.
Pet store.
That store.
The woof.
So they have no problem with the trees coming down, but the cost to remove the trees are about $2,000 a tree, and there's about 3 or 4 trees. That's clearly in the lease, the tenant responsibility. Yet, in Natalie's defense, she's saying, I'll build the fence. I'll put up the fence, I'll cover the cost for the fence, which is a great tenant improvement. Her needs. So we basically compromised and allowed her to move the fence 2 feet into the DOS land and avoid taking down the trees, thus avoid the cost to remove the trees. In a perfect world, we would have loved to have Public Works do it, but we did not have the capacity at the time. There's been some funerals activity at the cemetery. The guys have been busy, so we were unable to take the trees down. But taking down those trees is tricky. We'd rather give it to someone like Bill's Tree Service, but they're $2,000 a tree. That's $6,000 that Natalie's saying that's too much. So we just moved the fence along. So the plan is we're going to be open May long weekend. The fence is going in. Natalie and Stu are busy making that happen. But that did demonstrate how the district said, you know what? We leased this land to them. Let's work with the proponent. It hasn't been easy, but we're going to get there. To our satisfaction, they both tell me that they plan to also open up Owl's Head in the wintertime. Because as you know, Natalie and Stu are now in charge of Sled Sycamores, and they want to open up a winter operation on the government lease land that the DOS holds a permit on or tenure on. And we're going to work with them as well, because that's already serviced. We've already put in the services for that. So that is coming along. I just talked to Natalie yesterday. She's okay with the fence. The trees are going to remain as is. The services are going in. Kudos to Public Works, Daryl and the team. And she's going to be open May long weekend.
Good job. Happy ending. All right, go ahead, Gord. Same topic.
Yep, through the chair. Evan, just real quick, the fence, I just sent you a picture of the fence that they put up, and I'm not sure if you had a look at it, but it's looking really good. And I know it's $2,000 tree to come down with Bill Tree Service. If Stu wanted to take those trees down somehow themselves,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice to put that tree or that fence on the property line instead of 2 feet in? If we can get him to do that?
We can still do that. I propose that if you want to take the trees down, we can contract Bill's Tree Service, we can get them down, but we have to revise the lease.
Yeah.
So the trees could come down, the DOS can absorb the expense, and we can expense it over 2 years and change the lease from $250 to $500 a month for 2 years, or 1 year with the 1 year extension, and absorb the costs of those to reflect in a new amended lease. So that option's still available to them. I'm not sure if they understood.
I guess I don't have to raise my hand to it.
Basically, this now is you're responsible for everything. However, if you want us to do some of this stuff, we'll just amend the lease. So if there's $5,000 in costs, we can blend those $5,000 over 2-3 years and have a small increase in the annual, or sorry, the monthly lease.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Brian, sorry.
Just a question, what are the terms of the lease as far as, is it a 1 year lease that is, or have you signed, is it like a 3 year lease or?
I can bring that.
1 year lease with another 2 year renewal option.
Renewal.
So in total, it's 3,
Okay,
but after each year, yeah.
okay, I was just wondering, because if you absorb that cost and then add it, calculate it over 3 years, and then they don't lease it for the second year, that's a little bit of an issue, but that's just a
You can
question.
put language in the lease that in the event that they exit out, they're liable for these costs.
Sure.
We're not saying we want to recover every nickel, but we have to be careful. It's the old legislation assisting the business. We can't be using taxpayers' money to assist a private development. It's a slippery slope. So any costs we absorb, we can have paid back by an amended lease. So that option is still available.
Extension.
good, Evan. It's such a beautiful fence. It would be nice to be on the property line.
Very nice fence. I wish it was 2 feet right on the property line and the trees are fine.
Okay, so the lease is for 2 years with a 2 year extension.
Oh, okay.
So
Two,
I'm just gonna offer this up. There was a guy who took down a bunch of trees across the street, and his brother is a faller, and I've had him over to my place to knock down trees. It's like $100. He'll lay it down. You might have to buck it up, but you can put an X where you want that tree and he'll drop it right there. He'll never touch anything.
Is he fully insured?
Ken Whitehead.
Oh, yeah.
Always certified. I don't know about the insurance part, but
So like I said, for $100 or $150 or maybe $200, I'd ask him, because Bill's Tree Service is expensive, very expensive. And he'll knock it down, and I don't know, I got no issue with the chainsaw. They call it spring cleanup, continuation.
I think everyone would be happy if we take down trees for $150, but I gotta tell you.
Well, it's gonna be each tree, but I mean, well, you do what you said, except it's not $6,000 or $7,000 because there's four or five trees there. Now it's $1,000, and blend that in the rest of the lease over a year, add $100 to it, and it's done. And wood to the dump is free. We could have done that on our spring cleanup Saturday easily, because we only worked a half a day.
If
Just saying.
Natalie and Stu are agreeable to that, and they want to move the fence back to the property line, and you get a very, very good price and solid, that's within their budget, we can easily blend those costs over the next 2 years.
What about communities in Bloom? Would it be willing to participate then? There you go. Problem solved.
Wow.
That's how we'd like
He made-
planning development things forward. 1, 2, 3. Discussion, decision, move along. So. We'll have to call him back.
So all the district would ask for is a price to remove the trees. We need to know the numbers, we're able to for them, and we can blend those costs in the next 2 years with the revised lease. If that's.
or if they're reasonable enough, they might be quite willing to front it.
Yeah. So I can make a call and we can see, but somebody should have a conversation with them because they're over there husband and wife working together with a post hole auger and setting posts and leveling it. That's an amazing feat on its own. Because I can't even curl with my wife. So, all right, so now let's talk about 7-Eleven Parks. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to the chair, I went and took a look at that site this morning, and so I think somebody's gonna have to get in touch with them real quick, because I think they're putting posts in on the inside of that fence, so you're gonna have to have that conversation with them real quick.
Who wants to do that that's sitting over there?
Well, I can reach out to Natalie, I haven't talked about it.
Okay, you text her or phone her, or just tell her to hold off on the fence by the trees. There might be a solution for it.
And if she says, no, thank you, just proceed with the fence.
Yeah. Just say that we might have a person that can knock them down for about $1,000.
That's Ken.
Ken Whitehead.
Thank you.
That'll be to be confirmed. If he can do it, I would hope it would be right away. But I've watched, he come over to my house and these trees were whipping by the side of my house. Big trees, big trees. So, okay, so if that's it for that one, you handle that. Thanks, Evan. 7-Eleven Parkview, lot 31. It is actually coming on the agenda for variance. And I went over there this morning, Gord and I, on a drive-by. We had a conversation and I took some pictures of the backyards. Now, our bylaw states 6 meters for setback from the back fence or back property line. But that whole development has got the houses that are built there now. The houses are built to within 5 meters of the fence. So I phoned Gary Arsenal and I had a conversation with him. He didn't realize that that application was being submitted. It's being submitted by the owner of the property. It was sold and the people that were going to build there wanted to build a bigger house and they decided to go over to the Hemlocks. I don't know whether they purchased something there or not, but they've walked away from the deal at 7-Eleven Parksview. The fear is that had some discussion with 3 or 4 people and the modulars that Ram builds need that setback to get back that far. And so he's going to do that on that one lot. Then he's going to come in for a variance on the rest of them after we allow one, because we've set the precedents. Now, if you go over there, or if I could figure out how to get these pictures to somebody to put up on the thing, they're 5 meters. Those houses got a straight line going down them. If you give them, and that backyard is tiny. Like if you actually have a place, most people want a little bit of outdoor space. I think it would be a mistake to reduce it to 3.39. And there's some opposition to it. There's some people that currently live there that it doesn't matter to them, but I think as a council, we would be better off for that development to just vary it to 5 meters rather than 6 for the entire development, the same as we did for Brian Anderson when he came in on the Hemlocks on the front thing. It was a 10 meter and we reduced it to 6 or something. It's still big enough to park my truck on. The problem is if you let them stretch it out, the way it is now, there's no parking on the street, but they're already parking on the street. Because they made the houses so big, they've covered the whole lot. And I was going to, but I didn't have a chance to look up what our new zoning bylaw says about percentage of lot coverage. I don't think it's 85%, but they're a strata, maybe it doesn't matter to us. I have no idea.
That one's a tough one. We have to relook at that particular development because there's a density issue with what was approved and the current zone.
Yeah.
That's one of our it's a flagged property where we need to make sure the new zone, it works. But in terms of your comments about applying for variances on the other lots, yes, like I've been talking with both partners in that development. So there's two different partners and they have two different modular home companies with different layouts. And what I understand of the history of that, where it was sold to the new owner, is that that was originally planned for mobile homes as opposed to this different type of layout that you have with manufactured homes now, where they're more square as opposed to linear. So that's going to be an issue throughout the whole development, is what I understand, is trying to fit these things on there with the existing setbacks. This particular lot is a corner lot, and the advice that I had given them, because the fire chief has lots of concerns with strata, internal strata roads are not very wide in terms of access, would be to vary internal lot lines first before starting to look at coming closer to the road. So because that one's on a corner, it's got two road frontages, right? So anyway, that was the way that particular buyer went. Ram still wanted to continue with that particular variance because, yeah, it is his intention to come back with more variances on the rest of the lots, and he can apply at this point. The PLR has been issued, so there's no, the concern was that the road layouts might change again because there were some revisions to that plan a few times, and it was like, maybe just wait on applying for variances until you have a solid what your lot lines are going to be, right? So yeah, I hear what you're saying about parking in that, and it's going to be tight.
Well, I guess the big concern is that the original developer got that out of ALR land.
Mm-hmm.
This council spent 5 years trying to get a piece out of ALR to put in campgrounds, and to no success. There is a required density. Therefore, he doesn't have a lot of wiggle room change any lot design in there, because it's supposed to have so many houses, I forget what it is, and then 10 supposedly affordable houses, and then a 90 or 92 unit condo or townhouse apartment block is what's supposed to be on a 2-acre piece. Runs on, I can't remember that.
Large, is it?
The large? No, that's large. So I think from my understanding, they have some cookie cutter, like you look at the houses that are there. There's some that Gary Stick built, but the first two that are there were built by Twin Anchors. They fit quite nicely on those lots. They're whatever they are, 244s or 277s. I always get them confused. So they're modular. They were built at Twin Anchors. They were taken over there and set on the foundations. So if he's telling you that, they can't do it, it's because their cookie cutter don't fit where they want it to. And we're looking, one of the things is we're looking at affordable or attainable housing. And the lot prices now are, my understanding, $129 for 0.1 of an acre. That's lunacy. And then add a house to it. You're now at 4.25. The attainable's not happening. Add more square footage, you're 450. That was not the objective of that property.
Yeah.
There's kids in this community that can't afford to buy a house. Mostly they could afford to buy a house, but they can't seem to get the down payment together. So I don't think that building a larger house on a small lot, and like I said, I'm asking staff if you had any time or if you're aware of what the new zoning bylaws are, but there's a percentage of lot coverage. I know that was put in the new zoning bylaws for residential. And
I'd have to pull the zone for that particular one. There were a lot of things that I understood had been done. And then when I went and looked, they hadn't.
Yeah.
Like things like detached suites or increased accessory building height because of everybody's got an RV or a boat, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't in the zone. So there's some things that we still need to make sure. Yeah, and we're getting there now that we're punching through all these applications that we got early in the year. But as far as
balancing it.
Yeah, no, and I hear you there. Yeah, you have to balance stormwater management and we need a strategy actually around accessible housing, which is something we're working on too. It's another one of our projects. But as far as 711 Parksville goes, that current phase, none of the affordable housing requirement that the ALC had, right, for taking that out. None of those lots are in that phase.
That's correct.
They're in subsequent phases, kind of in the middle. So yeah, you are going to see, those are going to be at a higher value because none of them are the ones that will have the covenant.
Yeah.
On them to keep the price down.
But I think
They'll be around 350, I think.
if you move to the side of that, you can see the houses that are there on that road. So you see the one house is built at the corner of the road coming in. So that's 5 meters from the property line to the back of the eaves. We went over there and measured it. And you go to the other side of the street, the opposite side of the street, that way, yeah. That's backyard is also 5 meters. The house, the second house down, that house was built by Twin Anchors, delivered over there. That's Daryl Troughton's daughter lives in that house. And she's got a backyard that there's no room to move in because she's got a dog and kids and it's full. And so those yards are minuscule to start with. And making it 3.39 meters, I mean, you'll be able to barely get your bicycle out there. So I think that for the future sale and the value of it and the intent of what that property was for, I don't know why they got 5 meters and our zoning bylaw says 6. Must have
There's
applied.
variances.
Oh,
So a bunch of those have a variance on all of them. So I believe all along the trail side.
yeah, all along the trail is,
And then some of the odd lots in that phase have their own variances. They came and applied separately. So there are variances in that phase existing already.
right. But I'd suggest,
Thinking no more than going to 5. And
yes,
would say that considering there's been variances that the new zone for that property recognize that.
Right. because there's a couple, like there's a house now built where the trees are behind those two there, right there, that lot. There's a house built there. There's somebody looking to, I think, build a house on the one next door. The guy next door is the original Troughton property, and that's 2 lots or whatever. And then there's the lot that's at the corner, which is almost a half an acre.
Yeah, the lot at the corner has come in for subdivision, FYI.
Did he?
Yeah. I don't think that's issued yet.
That's unfortunate. I looked at buying that myself personally. I decided to get my checkbook out, it had already sold. So would have been a great 4-plex or 6-plex there. So whether it was allowed, I don't know. But all I'm saying is that all the existing ones seem to have a 5 meter. And so uniformity in that development would save a lot of grief. One of the things that I'm hoping that with the OCP and the new zoning bylaws is that we don't have to spend our time, because just about every deal that comes through the door is a variance. And if we had some consistency in our area like that development, this is what your setbacks are, that's what you're gonna, it eliminates a lot of that stuff. So my personal preference, I don't know whether everybody else is gonna go for that, but I think it helps the developer or the builder as well if they have clarity on exactly what they have to do. Go ahead, Scott.
Good news and bad news. Bad news is we only have about 15 minutes left. The good news is you have lots of time to talk with this at the council meeting. Do what you want to do next, but yeah, we should
Probably wrap it up.
about wrapping this one up.
So is there any other items on there that anybody saw that they thought would,
I think I'm good.
good?
And we'll get this list to the group. This will be a standing item on our meeting, so we'll talk about it the next time.
So will you be sending this out via email to everyone?
Yeah.
Basically? Okay.
And then just moving on to the project. So I just have a list of kind of the bigger projects we're working on. The new zoning bylaw. We'll have an update for the next meeting. We'll get everybody a copy, and we can add this when we have more time to talk about it. Dock regulations, short-term accommodation regulations, we'll work on those, and probably make sense to get those in with the new zoning bylaw. So we're adopting one bylaw. Subdivision development servicing bylaw, that's something that Public Works and Development Services have been working on, and we'll continue to do that. GIS review, that's something that should help the public quite a bit, where people can access information online and then create property reports. And then just internally, when we're doing our work, it helps to have accurate information. And then the housing strategy. So that's something that we're required to do and something we've budgeted for, and we've kind of started it. So something else we're working on. But again, we'll keep this project list updated at the next meetings as we go forward.
So having brought up that thing at the top of the list, the new zoning bylaw, what will be the process for moving it forward to adoption, like without having the public input? Has government given us a way to actually get this done?
No, I think we'll get some public input. I think we'll start that. We have some input lined up on some of the other issues. But yeah, as we move through it with council and the public, but yeah, it's not gonna be instant, but get through it. And I think, the next meeting, I think we'll have a better update on timeline. We'll probably work with the committee on a timeline that's acceptable and our ideas for public input and forward.
Sarah, if I could ask you, please, you were working on it and there was some things that you were tweaking towards legal things that needed to be addressed in the zoning bylaws. Is that completed now, or are we still muddling through it?
We're still working through it. We had a lot of applications. So we were working with LGO, as you know, and they've done a lot of GIS analysis for us to help us kind of, get a 3D model, look at what current setbacks are, right? So we get an idea of what the zones need to do in terms of recognizing existing properties, right? So we do have some draft zones now that Scott has started looking at, and we need to have a powwow together. And so, yeah, there is an online map that LGO put together. And I'll talk to Scott about sharing that if anybody wants to kind of look at the information they've put together.
So I get, it's just a question. Is it expected that this committee is going to be involved in some of those? Or are we going to dedicate a part of our hour and a half to some of that and the other time to people coming in with applications or with a interest or consideration? Is that how this is going to work, and what do we feel the split's going to be?
Yeah, I think it's up to the chair and the committee. But yeah, as we create the agendas, we'll include this. But I would hope this committee, we're gonna have time to have a really good deep dive into the new zoning bylaw. At the same time, still invite developers in to make their presentations, but twice a month, we can probably fit it all in.
Okay, great. Terry?
Yeah, it's coming to the end here, so I just want to make one comment. I also want to thank Ryan Aries as an associate. I see him sitting over there and I missed him in my earlier comments, but this is a prime example today of the purpose of the planning committee in just a few short discussions, and Parksville was one of them, as to the importance of the planning committee and how we can get through this thing and to assist the planning department. So yeah, I already seen some advantages of this particular committee, and I think I see Scott, he's seems to be buying in on this as long as the rest of the group, and I'm pretty pleased with what I've seen here today. Thanks.
All right, well, I'd like to thank the fools for joining up to this task. It'll be interesting, though. I enjoyed being on the OCP, and before this term is up, I'd like to see the zoning bylaws and the process streamlined so that maybe the planning committee doesn't need to exist after that. Maybe it will be called the variance committee or something. I don't know, but for right now, we have to come up with a process that's going to work for the office, and it's going to work for the people that are coming through the front door. That's why I wanted to be here. So, and I think people will be a lot more freer with their information. Like you said, they don't come in with everything on their sketch, where we could have the tendency to kind of milk it out of them and get everything that they're trying to do. That way, staff has a clear picture of what it is they're trying to attempt, and then the answer may be no. It's not always going to be yes, but
Yes, with conditions.
yeah. All right, is there any further comments by anybody? Sure.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the planning and development committee meeting at 2:24. Seconded by Brian, all in favor? We're out of here. Thank you.
All right.
So I have a copy of the draft zoning bylaws. You want me to just forward them to?
Pardon me?
Yes.
You have Brian and Deb's email address?
Brian's for